It's made with aloe vera. It's also made with clay and also plant pigment.
Just tell me a little bit about yourself, what you got going on over here.
What's up, everybody? Pharaoh of Florida Grand. We got greatness. That's it.
Guantanamo Bay, and you don't see them no more. You know what I mean? People just disappear. This is America. You know, that always talking about they going to rescue people, save people.
She corrected incorrectly, and I just find it amazing. I homeschool him now. It's predominantly, I'm not gonna say that.
And capitalism. You know what I mean? So I think the context is very important. To know that they do this not because they don't like it. It doesn't matter. When you have power, that's why we struggle for power and self-determination, because when you have power, it doesn't matter whether somebody likes it. As long as they can't harm you, hurt you, or prevent you from determining your own destiny. You know what I mean? And that's what we lack, is power. You know what I mean? We had millenniums of black power. Before white invasion of Africa, the world was, had centuries of black power. And what did black power bring into existence? Civilization. You know what I mean? Mathematics, science, agriculture, trade, bartering, you know what I mean? And stuff. So that's what we're trying to get back to. And we need black power to save the world from white power. You know what I mean? And we have to break the back of white power for the rest of the world to live. Because everybody else in the world, the people of color, is under the foot of white power. Imperialism, capitalism, colonialism. You know what I mean? And so we have to get back our power as a people. That means we have to free Africa. We have to unite Africa. We have to take back our resources and build our destiny and our future for our children. Without that, it's never going to be any future for us here in America under white power, imperialism, capitalism. I don't care how you vote, because the people that y'all wanted to win, the person y'all wanted to win, won the election. You know what I mean? This woman that y'all wanted, for whatever reason, you know what I mean? She won the election. But the person you didn't want, he's in the white people's house. You know what I mean? Doing what he do. And he didn't expect to win. In fact, the ruling class didn't expect him to win. You know what I mean? But they moved, it was too late for them to do anything about it, because he had won the white working class, and people from the farms and stuff, he won them. Because what he means by making America great again, it means putting you back on the plantation.
That's right.
And everybody else. He wants where America ruled with an iron fist the whole world. You know what I mean? Those glory days. You know what I mean? So their greatness, from our perspective, is our own subjugation. You know what I mean? So that's what he means. And white people understand what he says when, let's make America great. You know what I mean?
Regular have they can name all the dinosaurs, Triceratops, Brontosaurus, Diplodocus. They can name all the dinosaurs, but if you kind of ask them, can you name 5 black kings? It's a difficult situation. 5 black kings prior to Christ, before Christ. So we have children growing up in our society who don't know who they are before post-slavery. So everything is we have the greats, Harriet Tubman, Malcolm, Martin, but we don't have inclination of our history before, which has been it's been like a sin to speak on it or to know about it. And if you look at Hollywood, you'll see that there is really no movies on it. You have great people who have a lot of money who don't get together and make a movie about a black Hollywood prior to before Christ. school system to have the heroes of America who are black, who are to be known. But before that, prior to that, we have a 10,000-year gap of a situation that we all, they masses ignore. So I know Willie Lynch is papers and how he, this is one of the,
You all, brother.
one of the things that they pushed to keep us, divided upon the, keep us down. I know that we will laugh, we will prevail, and I feel that we keep going, and we embed the truth in our children, that it will rise from the concrete and our girls.
Like organically flow right into the new Jim Crow out of the old Jim Crow. But is there anybody who read the book who feels comfortable maybe expressing what Michelle Alexander's expression of what the new Jim Crow is, like how she defines it? I think you briefly touched on it when you said that she talked about it being a racial caste system, and it's very necessary for us to get out of the habit of using mass incarceration or other terms that you're given and call it for what it is, which is a racial caste system, by her terms in the book. So is there anybody who wants to kind of elaborate on the expression of how the new Jim Crow was birthed, what was necessary to put in place? I will make a little bridge, which is a lot of times when we're doing the youth programs, and it's a media workshop, so we kind of have to show them, how we're being portrayed in the media. And then we show, all right, this is how we were portrayed in the media before. And you show them the blackface, all these different, negative stereotypes that were perpetuated in the media. And it always comes down to, the black sloth, the criminal, the lazy person, like all these stereotypes, all these things, like this same thing that she shows, this criminalization of our character, has actually been in place for so long, and it's still like that same thing is still what we see till this day. That the last time we met, we talked about the guy that was allegedly raped the woman, and they posted him on the Daily News and said that he was a brute and a savage, and like that was like the same exact language that was used before. So just little things like that kind of show the bridging between the old Jim Crow and the new Jim Crow, and tactics that are necessary to criminalize and tarnish our image. And the fact it relates directly to what you're saying as far as us not knowing the context of who we are and not realizing that this is a short span of time. If we're talking about 400, 500 years of enslavement to people who have been in existence for millions of years, if we even use Eurocentric anthropology and what they say as far as like the oldest human remains being found, all that time we're focusing on a very narrow slit in time. Even right now in the context of the new and the old Jim Crow, there's so much prior to that. So it's also interesting that our image of self has been constructed by this very system that chooses to completely sever us from the truth of our lineage and where we came from, and in many circumstances whitewash our history and take things and not even acknowledge the African origins of these things.
Suffering, like slavery been over. You dig what I'm saying? It's 1965. You know what I'm saying? We're still suffering. You dig what I'm saying? And black people was organizing, along with other groups of people, was organizing for self-determination. The Black Panther Party said, we want to end this colonial domination, you dig? And so the presidents and the federal government pretty much used the laws to get tough on crime rhetoric to stop us from organizing, stop us from to calm us down. You dig what I'm saying? Because they see that we was getting riled up, we was getting understanding our circumstances more and striving to do more to change our circumstances, to have self-determination. And as a means, like, they have a quote here by President Nixon talking about, like, getting tough on crime and knocking down, you know, black organizations and things of that sort. I definitely feel like the prison industrial complexes, and even the police are a means of containment. Because they were, after the Emancipation Proclamation, they were trying to figure out what to do with these so-called Negroes, what to do with these Negroes. You dig what I'm saying? And they couldn't get rid of it. They tried to send it to Liberia. They tried to send it. So they consciously created the prison system. You know what I'm saying? And as an extension of enslavement, as a tool to keep us subjugated, as a comrade said, and to keep us as a workers. Because that's the main thing. The convict leasing programs you mentioned, like, that's still really real. You know what I'm saying? It's an extension of them utilizing, making money off our oppression. It's one thing to lock somebody up for doing something wrong, but then to get them to be a slave, you know what I'm saying? To be a worker, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, they still doing it like today. Victoria's Secret, McDonald's, Boeing airplanes, they all utilize prison labor. And so the prison industrial complex, like, again, I feel like the construct that you put it in is a means to keep us as the laboring class. Because they brought us here to be laborers. You dig what I'm saying? They had to change up the way they went about things, so they switched it up, and now they found a new way to make us get free labor. And that's make a law. Like, it was against the law to go to. If I was thirsty, the police would knock me up in the head. Like, yo, go take me to jail. And now, we see the movies like Life. You know what I'm saying? Like, these is movies, but it's like real situations. Like, people get locked up for nonsense and do years behind jail and have to do hard labor at that. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like the whole integration movement, that was, again, it helped build the prison industrial complex as well. Like, you know what I'm saying? And we got to really come to terms with this system. You know what I'm saying? Because they're utilizing their institutions, they're utilizing their courts.
Just started today. But from the brief chapter that I read, what I found interesting was that, and if you know from history, when slavery began, it started with indentured servitude. It was whites. They tried to use Native Americans. I read in a book about the Bacon riots, which I never heard of, which I found interesting, which was poor whites and blacks who were trying to revolt against people with money. So it wasn't black and white, it was poor and rich. And I think that that's how it's always been. I come from Jewish ancestry, and I asked my father how come Jews are able to keep their history. Part of it is because they spoke the same language. There was a bunch of different languages in Africa. Another thing is that they were able to blend in. So it was a lot easier to enslave the black race because they couldn't blend in, they couldn't run home. I notice now we know that that black people don't do drugs more than white people. That's a myth. If anything, it's the other way around.
Yes.
But the thing is, from what I read in the book, when they had the Bacon riots, since it was poor against rich, then the rich people said, you know what? Let's just go to the white people and give them little perks. So now they're getting the poor white people on their side. And that's all the trick in the book, is to divide and conquer. And I think that that's a tactic that we should use in our everyday life, because really it's an economical war, and they're just using the black race because it's just easier to use it as a tool. It's more maneuverability. But I think really it's rich against poor, because if you look at the culture, when we all know when something works, they use it. I've noticed that a lot of people are into hip-hop, a lot of different people are into hip-hop, and that's what's becoming more popular. So I found that really interesting because I didn't know that. I didn't know that that all the races had tried initially, and that they put them against each other. That's what I got from that. Oops, sorry.
No, it's all good. Oh, and also, the sign-in, so we can just pass it around again, so anyone else who didn't sign in. So I also just wanted, because you also mentioned race and you also mentioned religion. And I want to just put into context, because this is something that we covered before, which is why we dealt with the ISIS paper. It's like this whole concept of, is it a race thing or is it
a class thing, right? And it's really dangerous for us to fall into that notion that it's a class struggle and it's a class issue. She actually ends up discussing that later on in the book, which you'll get to, which is on the last chapter. There's a section that is called colorblind. Sorry, I actually just read that part. So she basically breaks down in this section here, resisting the temptation of colorblind advocacy. So within this whole section, right, this is the end of it. So she's basically just presenting notions and ideas for people to elaborate on. She's not really giving anything because she's like, this would be a whole book in itself. But really, what her position is that we have to look at the reality of race as a construct, because it's a constructed idea. And also, like, when we're dealing with things like how you said, even within the Jewish situation, they still have the language, they still have their culture and their history. We don't have that. And you can be a Jew and identify with any race. And the whole concept of race is really just to divide us among each other, where you have different people who identify as being white from different places and coming here to America to adapt that label of being white for the benefit within the caste system. So it actually is foundationally all about race, because otherwise why would you even identify as being white? Why not be Polish? You go to a black person, they'll be like, I'm Jamaican, I'm from Trinidad, I'm Cape Verdean, whatever. And we're the only ones who really do that, and everyone else is coming here to adopt that label of being white. I have yet to find a European person that I've met that would be like, oh, well, I'm, instead of, I'm going to check other on the box because I'm from Ireland. Like, I've never seen that. But because of our pain and the colorism among us, because we're still dealing with the post-traumatic slavery syndrome, we're the ones who are trying to pull away from color and not deal with that aspect of it. So I also think that was really interesting. But to also put into context, the new Jim Crow, as she identifies it, is when the laws were put in place to criminalize drug activity, right? So this is the whole era of the drugs and criminalization. So we can kind of move on to that, because that's actually what birthed the new Jim Crow. The new Jim Crow came from the war on drugs reaction. Because when you put people in a situation where, they've been locked up, they got generations of that, and then you have limits to what you can do now, because after you come out of jail, you are a felon and you don't have opportunities, you can't get certain jobs. All of these barriers are then put in your way, and you're closed into a situation where you can't provide for your family, but the drugs are pouring into the community, right? And, we don't necessarily need to fully go into that, but, Iran-Contra, there's a lot about, how the CIA and the government were actually involved in getting drugs in the community. So it's like it creates this melting pot of, what do you do? You're going to just dive right into the economy that's actually booming when you can't do anything else to provide for your family in terms of survival mode. So I just wanted us to kind of transition into speaking about the drugs and the criminalization and how millions of people have been pushed into these prisons, some of which are literally, like we talked before about Angola State Penitentiary, which is literally on Angola plantation. It was called Angola because the Africans that were brought over from Angola. So they are literally operating and growing cotton on these farms. You can find YouTube videos of the warden taking tours, giving people tours, and you see these black men picking cotton in 2011, and it's really it's just mind-blowing to see that it's still the same thing. It's still slavery.
Laws are written. And I didn't realize this until I read the book. So, I guess someone could have, she said 500 grams of cocaine powder, and they have to have that much cocaine to get 10 years in prison, while for crack it's just like 5 grams or something, and they get 10 years. It could be a first offender. So that was really eye-opening to me, because the laws are constructed that way. And then she spoke about how the prosecutors, they're the ones with all the power, and they're the ones who decide who gets punished or who goes to jail. So it's just, and she's like, it's done randomly. So they could decide, you know, there's no, you know, they're the ones who make the decision on whether who goes to jail. And I think she discussed also how for white offenders, they're sent up to like the state programs, which are more lenient than in the city or the other programs. So that was very enlightening to me, because I didn't know that. And you know, because like we just said, you know, whites do drugs too, but why aren't they, you know, in the prison system? But that's why, because they're routed differently in the system, and the laws are developed. Because you know, crack was infiltrated into the black communities, and they wrote the laws to punish them more severely than in the white communities. So that was very eye-opening to me.
I just find it interesting because I'm learning about all this in at least 3 of my classes right now. So everything that everyone is saying is fully validating and confirming this. The Supreme Court and Congress, they're the one that kind of writes all the rules, and they don't, I mean, it's all sort of equality and everything like that, but it's not really, because even when they're determining who gets more privilege over other people, or even when they determine who can be classified as black or white, that is, yeah, they're doing that themselves. Like they're not going by any rule book, they're not going by any protocol, no science, no nothing. It's just what they say goes, whatever they feel. So I think we need to kind of stop being so surprised, like, oh my God, this is like whatever, because they have always felt like they've always done what they needed to do, or wanted to do, actually, what they wanted to do. And even the fact that law and order, what Reagan set in place, and this sort of like, even now, weed is legal in at least half of the country. Like in at least half of the country, weed is fully legal and it's fully okay. But how many black-owned businesses do you really see sprouting up in California? You know, selling weed. Yeah, 1 or 2, a handful, even at that. Not to mention any women doing that. But you don't see them at all. You just see all of these basically, you know, white men who are just like going there and they're just like making their edibles, or they're making their like, you know, hemp farm, whatever kind of thing, and you know, selling it and making crazy amounts of money. Like weed is making so much money over alcohol, and it's getting taxed and everything like that, but there's no type of benefit for, I'm gonna be honest, the plug down the block. Like the people who are selling weed on the streets, they're getting like, I know a handful of people who have been like not locked up, but they've been like either taken to bookings, or done this, or just been in some type of criminalized situation for a dime or a nick, or like just like some weed. They were just gonna like smoke with their friends, and statistically, white college kids in Columbia are doing way more drugs than the black kid on the corner. Like we're smoking pot, but they're doing coke every weekend with their friends. Like, and pills, the crazy pills. Oh my God, like pills. Oh my God, like I had this one friend. No, seriously. And they leave. No, they seriously do. I have friends who have gone and they're addicted to Adderall. I didn't even know you could get addicted to Adderall, on Xans and, you know, Molly's and everything like that. And they're going away and they're doing these crazy, like, cool party drugs. But all my friends in the city, we just smoking. We smoking dope. But that, even the way that that's, everyone knows what's happening, but no one really says it. So like when you get, like I said, when I have my friend who was getting like in jail because they had weed on them one way too many times and they had to do time for it, versus my friend who's upstate and I know she's doing like crazy shit up there. And like just the way how it's instituted and criminalized, and the way how it's framed, and how local inner city black kids are criminalized in this way. But we know for a fact that these privileged kids who have been, you know, put on a chain, and once they're set free, or once they have the money and they have the privilege and they have the time to do all of this shit, but we have all the stress and all the anxiety and all of the dealing with finding a job, and you're competing with all these other people and trying to, you know, basically make it by, you know, it's just like a really like, I don't know, eye-opening sort of experience.
Hi, my name is Jamila. Hello. Peace.
I just want to say about the school system. You see how they moving in our school system in our area, right? But not one of their kids are in our school system. Why is that? Because they have their own rules. They know how to maneuver. Because my child, I'm in District 14. I want my child to go to District 16. They can't do it because we don't live in that area. But my neighbor live in my area, but her kid don't go to that school. Why is that? Their laws are different. They know what to do. The white people, they know what to do to get their kids into the schools out of their district. And they all over Crown Heights, all over here, but their kids is not in our school facilities at all. And no one don't even realize that. They are neighbors, but their kids don't go to our schools. You know, so I just wanted to pinpoint that out.
Little small towns have become wealthier through jail systems, and you know, blacks and Hispanics mainly incarcerated. If you look at the statistics, there's a movie called 13. I got to see. You guys will really see that. I do some work from the Jamal. Move 9, and you know. This is the new situation, and we're going into a probation situation right now, where it's going to be, well, all right, we're going to lock you up, we're going to keep you we're going to keep you on paper forever. We'll let you out of jail, but we're going to know where you're at all times. And if you slip and you mess up, you're going to be the first one we're going to be calling at the door. So now there's a whole new system and a whole new wave. And hold on one second, brother. One second. All right, I'll be right there. And it's all right. It's you know, and it is. These are the things that are that they've implicated. So we have to be very diligent. We have to be very aware, because it's so hard from the inner city, coming from the projects, coming from lower income housing, where you can't afford to. You can't even have. You don't have no housing. Where you don't have no housing, and you don't have these situations where you can afford a resourcefully live, to not be on drugs. So now you have prescription drugs. So now you have the new warfare is prescription drugs, where the government is giving you drugs, and you become dependent on that. So I'll elaborate on the marijuana situation. We probably not gonna make the most money off the marijuana once it gets fully legalized, and it's kind of sad, because I feel that it is something that people of ethnic background like to do. It's a social karma. You know, we're very hype people, we're very vibrant people, and it's something that calms us down. And you know, instead of alcohol habits acting wild, you know, it's something we like to do. So it's always been held back. And of course, the big inner cities, this is where they're going to make the most money. So they're going to keep the taxes off. They know that California, LA made so much money. They know that. But they don't want to. In New York, they want to tax. In New York, they're going to tax it before they legalize it. Trust me.
I guess anybody won't be smoking.
It's going to be on the title, medical marijuana. But the stuff that's on the street is still going to be going on. It's a way to let white people get high, do what they want to do, and it's legal. But the war that's on the African community in America is still going to be going on. You know what I mean? Drugs is chemical warfare. It's psychological war, military warfare. The drugs was part of COINTELPRO. You know what I mean? They assassinated our revolutionary leaders, crushed our revolutionary organization, exposed our community. That means that there was no protection, because the Black Panthers Party for Self-Defense was a leading force during that period about self-defense. Against who? You know, the police. But the police represent the state. That's all they are. They arms of the state to keep us contained and colonized. And so when they have these programs, and we talking about getting jobs and opening a business, that's not the nature of this beast. And nothing in this society is for African people to benefit. You know what I mean? And they, you know, they got a whole crew of people on Madison Avenue that make, you know, advertisement to make things seem so innocent. And all you got to do is open this business, but that has nothing to do with our oppression. You know what I mean? Everything they do has to do with us keeping us oppressed and away from our self-determination, our freedom. And we have to be careful when we talk about, you know, marijuana and stuff like that, and that's going to alleviate. Our oppression is going to be ended when we end it. We end it. You know what I mean? On our terms. We got to say, we got to understand what we want. We want to integrate with, you know, this system. Like Malcolm said, like, for us to try to integrate into America, it's like a chicken trying to integrate with the oven. You know what I mean? And so the system, for us to survive, to have happiness and prosperity for ourselves and our children, this system has to go. There's no negotiation with them. You know, there's no us against the world kind of thing that they like to push out in the media. It is always about white control of the rest of the world. Europeans are 6% of the world population. They control everybody. And how did they do that? How could 6% of the people control, 94% of the world's people, land, and resources? Psychological warfare, chemical warfare. We've seen it. That's how they got this land. You know what I mean? And, you know, like indigenous people do, you invite people in your house, they starving, you feed them, you clothe them, and they turn around and slaughter you and take your land. Somebody said back in the day that when the Europeans came to Africa, they came with the Bible and no land. The Africans had no Bible and no land, but when the Europeans left, they had the land and we had the Bible. You know what I mean? And, you know, and we, you know, that's, you know, the Christian Bible. You know what I mean? That, you know, that, again, psychological warfare. You know what I mean? Where you worshiping this guy that looked like a hippie, you know? So, every...